Welcome to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's guest is Allison Jayne Ewing. You'll hear about her thoughts on Cinderella, ghosting, and being a goddess in the bedroom. And if you love the episode, be sure to tell your friends about it and rate it as well. Thanks for joining me today, Allison.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, me too. I love the topics already. So, yeah.
Well, and I love talking about all of this stuff. And I wrote this book actually as what I describe as a love letter for the other single women that I know in my world, friends, clients, and all the struggles they were going through. And that's what really inspired me to write this book and to start getting it out there in the world.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, let's start with the first thing. We talked a little bit before we got started about the Cinderella, and I said that's pretty much been like the downfall for women is thinking that the fairy tale is like what everyone gets. And so how about start with that? Or just like
so that's actually one of the most popular chapters I've been told in the book. And the title I probably can't say on here.
No, it's fine. You can.
Oh, can I? Okay. So it's called How Cinderella Fucked Me Up. And because I realized that when I was a little girl growing up on these fairy tales, and we were a big Disney family and all of that, that I had certain notions. And the big one that I talk about in the book is this notion of that as a woman, it is my role to be chosen by a guy. And I really do blame Cinderella a lot for that, because if you think about sort of the iconic scene, what's happening, the prince is at the top of the stairs looking sort of bored, disdainfully, apathetic down at this group of women who are all like, in this throng, and they're shoving each other out of the way and they're saying, pick me, and trying to get, his attention, and they're trying to sort of outdo one another. So there's this like women competitive thing that I really hate, and they're trying to do and be what they think the prince wants to be chosen, right? And I realized that when I was younger and dating and then again post divorce and dating again, I would go on these dates showing up. Or even before then, even like with online dating on chats and stuff, I was presenting as if I'm trying to be chosen. So I'm trying to, be cute and funny and, what would they like and how do they want, what is this guy looking for kind of thing. And it was very, very self-conscious. I think of myself as a pretty confident person. I'm a pretty successful person. I don't have confidence issues in any other area of my life. Yeah. And I didn't even realize that I did in dating until later, until I started doing a deep dive on like, what is not working here? And that's one thing I realized, that I was really vibing at this level of, I want you to choose me. And I think that is a big turnoff to men. And if we remember that scene, what does the prince do? He ends up seeing Cinderella off in the distance. She's not even looking at him. She's not even trying to get his attention. And she's actually the one he chooses. So I think in that way, Cinderella gives us a little clue of, how to be. So when I realized this, and I realized, okay, I need to flip the script and start to think about, I'm doing the choosing, I have just as much right to, be the chooser as to be the chosen, right? And so I started playing around with this idea, and I actually developed this tool for my clients where I said, okay, I want you to flip around the image of Cinderella, and you are the queen, the goddess queen at the top of the stairs, and there is a throng of men trying to get your attention, trying to get picked by you. And it's just like a little mental tool, but it will really start to shift your subconscious to realize, A, that there are actually a lot of men out there. I think especially when you're dating midlife, there's so much fear put out that there's no men out there. There's no good men. All the good ones are taken. I've got to take what I can get. I hear that from clients all the time. I got to take what I can get. This idea you have to settle. And so I think if you do this exercise, not only do you start to feel empowered that actually I get to choose and I don't have to work so hard showing up on these dates to get chosen. I can just be me.
Yeah.
And I think it starts to get your mind to realize there are actually a lot of guys out there.
Yeah.
And when you think there aren't, you don't see them,
Exactly. Yeah, that's the big point right there. The effect you expect is the effect you get. So if you think dating sucks and there's no men, that's what you're going to get. So I wholeheartedly believe that. And I also talk about books as well. So I just want to mention one more real quick. The Surrendered Single has that same concept where you're on a date to figure out if you like them. You're not trying to impress them. You're trying to decide if you want to choose them or go out again and see what you like and root through that kind of stuff. So, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I heard you actually talking about that on another one of your podcasts. And I was like, oh, I haven't read that book. I should read it. But I wholeheartedly believe it. But also there's also neuroscience behind it. And I do talk about that in my book because we have a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And that is the part of our brain that picks up on patterns. And that is why, you suddenly you decide you're going to get, I don't know, like a Jeep, you're going to buy a Jeep, right? And then all of a sudden you see Jeeps everywhere, right? Yeah. And you never noticed them before. And you're like, did so many people drive Jeeps before? Or I know for me, the big one was like when I got pregnant and before I was showing. And so only, a handful of people knew I was pregnant, but suddenly I saw pregnant women everywhere, right? And I was like, there were not these many pregnant women before, but there were. But my brain was now tuning into it because my reticular activating system was now turned on and looking for those patterns. So this is one thing I think is really important for people to think about when they're dating at midlife, that if you believe that and your brain keeps rehearsing the sentence, there's no good men out there, you're not going to see any good men out there. But if you shift that and you start to say, no, there are good men out there, or you start to, sort of go more into surrender, more into acceptance of, I'm just going to be open. And rather than, look, it's almost like you program your brain to look for the lack of guys because your reticular activating system won't see them, versus you can program your brain to actually look and see and find better men and available men.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I was younger, in my prime, I was like on the prowl and like looking everywhere and like desperately, like just like, what's the word for it? Basically pushing them away, like shunning them, like there was no chance. And then now that I'm older and just could care less, like they're just flocking, and there are tons of great men out there. So I definitely mind.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really a lot of what I talk about in my book, because, it's called Find Love Again, Learn to Date Like a Goddess. And the goddessness is a vibe, right? And so it's this vibe that you give off when you shift, when you stop trying to be chosen, pick me, right? And you just move into, actually, I'm going to wait and find what I want, and I'm going to be discerning and all of that. Yeah. And, we talked a little bit before the show about the ghosting concept and how does that play into this whole Cinderella piece. And what I realized was there's women out there who, this one client we were working with actually brought this to the surface for me, where she was literally being ghosted by every guy she connected with online, every guy. And one of the things I like to say is, if there's a pattern that's showing up in your life that seems statistically very improbable, then it's probably about you and your inner work and some inner cleanup you need to do. And that's why it's being reflected to you and showing up over and over. And so I said, there's just no way. I mean, statistically, it's very improbable that every guy someone would match with would then ghost them, Yeah. So we had her, and I'm saying we because I work with a date coach who's involved in my program too. And so we had this woman listen to a meditation 2 to 3 times a day, I think she did, for about 2 weeks, all about being chosen and feeling chosen. So sort of feeling into that vibe of, I'm already chosen. So I don't have to go out there and try to get chosen. I am chosen. And when she made that shift in her subconscious, then things started showing up differently outside. All of a sudden, lots of guys started showing up, to your point, flocking around her. And she found a guy, and they, went out on a date. I think it was literally within 2 weeks of listening to this meditation. So she just kind of brainwashed herself subconsciously, and she changed the experience of being ghosted. I think a lot of times if women are being ghosted over and over, they probably have some pretty deep internal childhood wounds around abandonment and fear of being abandoned. And so when you have that fear, then, you know, that fear gets mirrored in your life and will keep showing up for you over and over.
Yeah. Until
and
you
it's
do
one
something
of the,
about it or heal it.
Yeah, exactly. Until you heal it. And I do think it's one of the difficult things with dating at midlife and with the work that I do, because people want some kind of answer. Well, just tell me what to say to him on the chat, or just tell me, you know, how to get more likes or something. And I really truly believe in the premise of my book is that you have to do the internal work to get your external to shift. Yeah. And that's hard, you know, and that's something a lot of people don't want to put the work into. But when you do, the rewards are, you know, just phenomenal.
For sure. Yeah. And I'm actually, I read the book, since I always mention them. I haven't mentioned this one yet though. Soulbriety. It's like SOUL-briety, kind of like sobriety. But because, you know, people in AA, they may stop drinking, but they haven't gotten to the root cause of why they were drinking in the first place. So soulbriety is looking at the trauma and healing that and doing the inner work, like you're saying. So I think that book is like amazing for the trauma and the childhood stuff. So just want to say that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Yeah. And I talk in my book about, I'm an EFT practitioner, which is tapping. And for people who aren't familiar, it's basically a combination of sort of exposure therapy and tapping on acupressure points. So I teach my clients to tap on their own acupressure points. And what happens is when you tap on your acupressure points, it sends a calming signal to the fight or flight part of your brain, and it shuts it off. And so if you're thinking about something very emotional, a childhood wound perhaps, or, you know, just even something emotional in your present, and you stimulate those acupressure points at the same time, your brain cannot hold both of those things. They cannot hold the emotional charge and that calming signal getting sent to it at the same time. So the calming signal wins and it extinguishes the emotional charge.
Yeah.
And it works very quickly and very powerfully. And it's kind of an amazing tool.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking of another book, but I've been sharing too many at this point, but 90 days to a better life or something like that, or 90 seconds. Basically those thoughts that you have, those emotions can only last pretty much 90 seconds. So if you can get yourself through that tapping is probably even faster than the 90 seconds. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah. What I love about tapping is that it's an active thing, right? I mean, I think meditation is hard for a lot of people because they feel like, oh, I just got to sit and think, or really sitting with really intense, strong feelings, even for 90 seconds can be so painful that most people will just shove them down, you know? Okay, sure. And I always, I use this analogy a lot with people that I'm working with, where if you think about like holding a beach ball underwater, it takes a lot of energy, right, to keep it under there. You really have to work. And it's always trying to push its way up, right? And yet, if you can gently release the beach ball, it's just going to come to the surface and there's going to be no more tension. But what most of us do is try to shove our emotions being the beach ball, shove them down. And we work so hard at it. And then if we get like tired or, stressed out or even just like hungry or whatever, they blow up, right? You know, it's like we release it too quickly and the ball just flies out. Yeah. So what I love about EFT tapping is it is a way to gently release those emotions that makes it more tolerable. And so if someone is, okay, I'm going to sit here and do this hard work on, feeling, let's say, the pain of my breakup, right? We all know, actually, I heard you did an episode on this, about we have to feel the grief and the sadness in order to get through it. It's going to linger unless you allow yourself that permission to feel into it and to experience it. And so, but it's very difficult and most people don't want to do that. And they'd rather go out and drink wine with friends or, exercise 3 hours or whatever. We all have our things that we can use to escape feeling our feelings. Yeah. So what I love about EFT tapping is you can do it you can sit and set a timer for 15 minutes and say, okay, I'm going to feel this pain. I'm going to let myself feel this pain now and tap while I do it. And it's going to move the emotions through a lot quicker, and you're going to feel a lot better very fast. And it's really cool. If you do it like really, really lean into the feelings, which is hard for people, but if you do and you tap, at some point, it actually just feels like it evaporates right out of your body. It's the coolest feeling. I can't get over it every time it happens to me. And then all of a sudden it's just gone. And then maybe there's still another aspect to the breakup, and so maybe you have to do it again, but it's kind of like, I talk about it like brushing your teeth. You might have to do 10, 15 minutes a day, or even 5 minutes a day. And then maybe you're going to have to work with a practitioner every so often because it's going to be a bigger wound or a deeper thing, or you can't get it out on your own. But really, tapping is a self-help tool, and a lot of people can use it. And so in my book, at the end of every, sorry, go ahead. So what I was going to say is that at the end of every chapter in my book, there's a tapping script. And I do lay out in my book exactly how to do the tapping. And the reason that I have the tapping script at the end is because I can sit here and tell you and your listeners, flip to being the chooser rather than being the chosen. But these are like really deeply ingrained subconscious patterns, and they are very hard to shift on our own. And when you do the tapping and you start tapping on whatever it is for you, maybe it's like for me, I know it was like I had like what I joke is gym trauma. Like I was always like picked last. I was like a scrawny little kid, and I wasn't very athletic, and I was always picked last. So I was literally hoping to be chosen in gym class, so there was that wound there that I had to work through. So the way you do it is you sort of go back to the feeling that you had, and that was like a feeling of not being chosen. And the best way is if you tune into your body and really feel where you feel it in your body. That just keeps us from being in our head. Sometimes we're just like two in our heads all the time. And tapping only works on an emotion. So it really works on a negative feeling, which a lot of people who are into affirmations and stuff, they're like, well, I don't want to talk about the negative feeling. I'll bring it to me. But you have to just think about it as you're honoring actually what you feel right now, and you're taking it in, and then you're going to release that. And so you would think about, okay, and it's really great if you can get specific. So in this example, I could have thought about, I'm sure I did at some point actually tap on this, but it was a long time ago. I don't totally remember. But okay, I never felt chosen in gym class. So then I'd feel in my body, and maybe it's like not in my stomach that I feel when I think about that. And then you start tapping, and there's a sequence that you always tap in. And this is on my website, but you can find it on YouTube. You can Google it. The information is everywhere, and you'll see pictures and diagrams and videos. Okay. And so you just tap on the fleshy side of your hand under your pinky, and you start tapping there, and you're going to say a statement there 3 times. And then you'll move on to the other points in the rest of the order, which are between the eyebrow and the bridge of the nose. And then outside of the eye, just not quite the temple, but just right outside the eye socket there. Okay. Under the eye on the bony ridge. And then move to under the nose, right where the nose and the upper lip meet. And then in the crease where your chin is the next point. And then under your collarbone, there's 2 little dents that you can feel. It's if you move like about an inch down from the hollow and 2 inches over, there's 2 little dents there. Then under your arm is the next point, and it's for women where your bra strap kind of goes around, for men a couple inches below your armpit. And then the top of your head and what's known as the crown chakra for those who are, familiar with the chakras. And then you stop and you take a deep breath and you tune back in. So the way it would work is I would say to myself, okay, I never felt chosen in gym class, scale 1 to 10. How strong is that feeling still alive in me right now in the present? And I say, oh, it's an 8. And then I would tap on the side of my hand. And this one, you say a statement 3 times, and you just say, even though I was never chosen in gym class and I still feel not chosen, I deeply and completely accept myself, even though I felt not chosen in gym class, and I still today feel not chosen. I accept and honor my feelings, even though I was never chosen in gym class. And today I still have a hard time being chosen. I love and accept myself completely anyway. And then you go to the eyebrow point and say, but I was never chosen and I still feel it. Side of the eye. I wasn't chosen. I still feel it under the eye, so on and so forth through the rest of the points that I mentioned. Take a deep breath, tune back into that feeling in your body and give it a number. And almost always the number has gone down. Even if it's just by 1 or 2, it's still moving in the right direction of clearing out of your body.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Because I know several people that are in their head a lot, and it's hard for them to get through their emotions, or they, like you said, they just shove them down. So this will be an excellent episode. And I know I always say that, but
it's a helpful tool.
Should we move on to the final thing about the goddess in the bedroom, or do you have more to say about that still?
I think that's just the basic, is that, every principle that is in the book, or, anything that you're really trying to work through, this is a tool that you can apply to yourself. Oh, I know what I want to say. I did want to say that when I first got trained in it, I specifically got trained in it because I thought, oh, this is so cool because I can do it with my clients and they have something they can use on their own, like a very concrete tool. So that's what I really loved about it when I first got trained in it. So, and now I'm applying it to the dating world, which is only serendipitously happened because I became single and dating in my midlife. So so it's an amazing tool. Yeah. So anyway, we can move on to the second most popular chapter in my book, known as the sex chapter. Although I will say I've had some friends, like husbands, read it and they were like, oh, it wasn't that juicy. So I don't know what exactly they were looking. I should tell them to listen to your podcast if they're looking for juicy. So the reason, though, that I wrote that chapter, and it's called How to Be a Goddess in the Bedroom, is because I really wanted to empower women, especially at midlife, to start to feel confident and empowered and comfortable in the bedroom. Because obviously that's amazing for women, but honestly, I have yet to meet a guy who doesn't love that. They love it. Mm-hmm. They love it when you keep the lights on. They love it when you're comfortable in your own skin and you're not worrying about your body or how it looks or how it, what is happening. So that's the thing that I've had single women say, well, how do you give a good blowjob, or how do you do this, or how do you do that? And I'm like, you know how you do it? By having fun. And if you're having fun giving a blowjob, they're going to have fun too. But if you are trying so hard to get the guy to orgasm, they pick up on that and they know that you're like tense and you're just trying to get it done and you're just trying to get it over with. And that's no fun for anybody, because now you're not having fun and he's not having fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you can go to the episode I have on the tools of how to do it, if for future reference. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So basically what I talk a lot about in that chapter is about, again, getting out of your head by being mindful. So mindfulness, for anyone who doesn't know, is just being in the moment and paying attention to the moment by moment. So it's just being present is another way of putting it. And it is a skill. It is something that you do have to practice and cultivate, just like lifting weights to get muscles. It is something that you do have to practice. And one of the best ways that I know of learning mindfulness is just noticing when you're fully participating in something. So when, if you have kids, when you're laughing with your kids and something just happens and you're just having that spontaneous laughter and you're just sort of in it, and then afterwards you think back, oh, that was fun. But in the moment you weren't thinking, oh, this is fun. You were just in it and just absorbed in it, And anything else you do, if it's, maybe a sport or a sailing or just even like when you go for a walk in nature and you lose track of time because you're just in it and you're not thinking about what's happening, but you're just participating in what's happening. That's mindfulness. And that is super healthy for us. There's tons of benefits the research has shown if we can spend more and more time in that place. That's why people tend to love travel, because when you travel to a new place, you have to be in it. Otherwise you're going to get lost, right? You have to be very present. You have to attune to street signs and know where you're going. So you have to be very present, and you can't be in your head worrying about your problems and, what's going to happen tomorrow or thinking about the past and ruminating. You have to be present. So what does all this have to do with the bedroom is if you can apply mindfulness in the bedroom, it's going to change everything for you sexually, because when you're just really, really present and in it, you will have a transformative experience. You will have way better orgasms, or if you haven't been orgasming, you will start to orgasm because you're not in your head thinking about, oh God, I hope I orgasm, or I hope he orgasm, or, you're not thinking, you're in it and you're experiencing it. Yeah. And so I tell women the way to really do this, the way to start to train yourself is just very simple. You can just start noticing the touch of his or her, I should say, his or her feeling on your skin, of their fingers running over your skin, and just being really present. You can practice on yourself. I'm doing it right now in our interview. And, you can just practice and just really tune in and just feel that sensation without thought. And the more that you can be, having a sexual experience and not thinking about it, but just experiencing it, the more pleasure you're going to get out of that experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and like I said, and it's definitely something that guys are looking for and guys are interested in. It's part of why I wrote the book. I had a couple of guys, I had one guy friend in particular who was like, will you please teach this to every woman you know? And I was like, well, I have been thinking about writing this book. So anyway, that was part of the prompt. And the point is just have fun, enjoy it, be in it, and you will have all sorts of way more fun, new experiences.
Yeah, and even laughing, like, if you try to turn and your arm gets stuck or something, instead of being all weird about it, just laugh. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also, I guess the other thing I really do, though, talk about that I should mention, which is important, is also having obviously very clear boundaries and communication. And I think the quote that I have at the beginning of that chapter is something like, it's from Gay Hendricks' book, but it's basically like, it's important to have a sweaty, uncomfortable 10-second conversation, right? And I'm messing up the quote, but it's along those lines. And it's basically the idea that just name it, just talk about it, just talk about what you like, what you don't like. Guys love it when women are directive because they don't know what they're doing a lot of the times, and so they just want the feedback. And, most good, if a guy doesn't want your feedback, then you probably shouldn't be dating him. Like, let's just back up on that, or if a partner doesn't want it. And so, you want to know that you can say these things and it's going to be respected and honored. I had a friend who is probably like in her early 50s dating and said to me, well, how do you have a conversation with a guy about protection? And I was like, what do you mean? How do you have a conversation? You just have a conversation. But then I realized, I am a trained therapist. So I know that I've been trained to have uncomfortable conversations, to talk about things most people don't talk about, so on and so forth. And what I realized is most women out there, especially after leaving a long-term relationship, a long-term marriage, suddenly back in the dating pool, they don't know how to have these conversations. They didn't have these conversations in the 90s. That wasn't happening back then, right? So it is really hard. But then once, I've worked with women, once you like rip the Band-Aid that first time and you just say, hey, these are my standards, take it or leave it, I think a lot of times sex starts when nobody has a condom. And so I always tell women, have one, be prepared, because, your health is the most important thing. So just unless you're monogamous and committed, then always you want to be prepared. And they'll say, oh, but what if they think I'm like a slut or something for having them? I'm like, trust me, if they do, again, not a good guy. B, they're going to be excited, because it's either that or they're not getting any, or they're running out to the store right there, right?
Interrupting.
Right. Right. So they're going to be happy when you have that. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Just a final story I did want to share, and it does a little bit go back to the Cinderella chapter, but it incorporates everything we just talked about as well. I had someone that I worked with, and I was doing tapping with her actually on weight loss, not on relationship stuff. But she was doing a lot of tapping and clearing a lot of layers of old stuff, let's call it, that was sort of weighing her down. And she had known this guy for a long time. She knew him when they were both married. And then they sort of came back together as friends. And she kept saying to all of us in our like single women posse group, she was like, you guys, he's really great. Somebody should go out with him. Somebody should go out with him. But for whatever reason, like she just didn't feel worthy or good enough she just didn't feel like she was going to be chosen by him, I think was the subconscious block there. So she kept kind of trying to push him on to other people in our little friendship group. And she had done some tapping, and then he called her up and was like, hey, you said like we should all go out with your group of friends and whatever, should we do that tomorrow? She was like, sure. So she called everybody, nobody could go. So it ended up just being the two of them. And I talked to her right before she went, and she was like, this is so great because I don't even like have to dress nice. I'm not even putting on makeup. I'm just wearing what I've been wearing all day. I don't even care. We're just friends. I just know he's a good guy. It'll be fun. Well, wouldn't you know, it's been almost a year and they're still together. And he completely fell for her that day. I mean, he already kind of was into her, but he was just, and she says, he still talks about that outfit that I wore that day. And it was like this ugly, like jumper thing. Like she was like, but he just loved it. So the point is that it's about the vibe, right? Yeah. And she shifted her vibe. She's definitely a goddess in the bedroom. She, shifted her vibe to a point of just being present, being in herself, not worried about him or what he's thinking, and just enjoying herself. And she found love.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. And just one more point about that too. Dang, totally lost my train of thought. I do this all the time. There was, a saying that, if you choose someone that's not your type normally, you would be like that woman, like you described, because you're like, whatever, he's not my type. I'll just go have fun. And that's the time you're like your most, like you said, basically it's pretty much a copy of what you just said. So I will stop because you said it better.
Right. Highest vibe, goddess self. That's what I say.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, it has been wonderful having you. I want to make sure we get your information to people if they're interested in hearing about your programs. And I know you have another book as well. So just going to share your stuff and how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So you can follow me on TikTok or Instagram, Allison Jayne with a Y, Goddess Maker. And you can also go to my website is the best way to find me at learntodatelikeagoddess.com. I actually put a promotion up for your listeners. Anybody who logs on right now can download a free ebook copy of my book, Find Love Again, Learn to Date Like a Goddess. And right now I'm running a program to go along with the book that I take women through 8 classes that go more in depth on all the principles that I teach in the book. And we do tapping circles together. And what's amazing about that is when women come together, one woman could bring something to the tapping circle and we all tap on it together. And you might not even realize that you had that issue until you tap on it with the other woman and it clears for you. So it's very, very powerful process. And this is why I love these tapping circles. And we clear so much stuff for so many women very quickly. So that's the program that I'm running right now.
Yeah, all of that sounds amazing. So if you love what you hear, be sure to check her out and all her stuff and get the free ebook for sure. Yeah. And like you said, those tapping circles sound really cool. So thank you very much for being on. I love educating and transforming and empowering people to have a better dating and sex life. So thank you very much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to rate and subscribe and follow and all the things. All right. Bye, everyone.
Frank Talk, Sex and Dating Educates.